Welcome back. This is Wheelock 7th edition, Chapter 1, and now we're going to look specifically at the inflected verb endings for Chapter 1. So let's start simple. We're going to limit ourselves in this chapter to talking about the present tense verb endings. Examples of the present tense in English are loves, is loving, and does love. First, we'll learn the indicative mood. The indicative mood is what you use to make statements of fact, give simple statements, and ask questions. We will not be looking at the subjunctive mood, which is what you use to designate potential. In English, these are sentences that have would, could, should, may, might, etc. After we learn some indicative endings, we'll learn some imperative mood endings. The imperative mood is the mood that you use to give commands. We'll be learning some forms for two different conjugations. In verb conjugations, we look at verb endings to tell you the following information: person, number, tense, voice, and mood. Person and number both give you information about the subject. The subject is the person or thing doing the action of the verb. Tense, voice, and mood all give you information about the verb itself. So let's look in more detail about person and number. In person, different endings of the verb tell you if the subject is I, or we, or you all, or he, she, it. And again, you can give specific nouns instead of those pronouns he, she, it. Specific nouns might be Marcus, or Julia, or cat, or global warming. Specific nouns for they could be the students or the ideas. So anything that is I or we is called first person. If it's you, whether it's just one you or many yous, you all, it's second person. He, she, or it is called third person, also they. You can differentiate singular and plural. This is the number. Singular number is anything that is the subject of I, you, or he, she, it. Plural is anything where the subject is we, you all, or they. Remember that these verb endings for person and number are telling you information about the subject that is doing the action of the verb. Tense, voice, and mood all tell you about the verb itself. Tense tells you when the action of the verb takes place. So the present tense is telling you the action is taking place now. Voice tells you whether the subject performs the action of the verb, which is the active voice, or whether the subject receives the action of the verb, which is the passive voice. We are going to start by learning the active voice. Mood tells you it's the manner of indicating the action of the verb. For example, indicative states facts, opinions, and questions. Imperative states commands, and the one we'll learn later is the subjunctive, which expresses potentiality or is also used for subordination. In English, as I mentioned before, the first person singular is represented by the pronoun I and then the verb. In Latin, we simply take the verb stem and add either O or M. For the second person, which in English is represented by the pronoun you plus the verb, Latin is the stem plus S. Third person singular, he, she, it, verbs, Latin stem plus T. First person plural, we blank, Latin stem plus mus. Second person plural, you all blank, Latin stem plus tis. Third person plural, they blank, Latin is stem plus nt. Now let's do that to some specific verbs. We are, to make our verb formations, first we have to learn the infinitive of each verb so that we can find the verb stem and then use the verb stem to add the endings and get the verb we want. Infinitive means that it's unbounded by person or number. So instead of I err, the infinitive is to err, as in the sentence to err is human, or I hate to err. In Latin, the present active infinitive ends in the letters re. For example, laudare means to praise, and monere means to warn. A bunch of verbs end in are, and all of these verbs follow similar patterns, and we call them verbs of the first conjugation. If we learn the patterns for the first conjugation, then we can apply those patterns to any verbs that end in are. Likewise, here's some other examples of verbs of the first conjugation that will follow the same patterns. Amara, to love, errara, to err, and vocare, to call. The second conjugation is for verbs that end in long ere. Again, if you learn the patterns for monera, you can apply them to other verbs of the second conjugation. For example, terrera, to terrify, debera, to owe, and widera, to see. To find the verb stem, you go to the infinitive, laudare, lop off the re, and you get the verb stem, lauda. We'll add endings to the verb stem. For monera, you follow the same pattern, go to the infinitive, lop off the re, and get the verb stem, monet, to which we will add our endings. Let's add some endings. What you've all been waiting for, using our sample verbs to praise and to warn. First person singular is laudo. I'm already going to break the rules. You were maybe expecting laudao, which is the stem plus the ending o. However, there's a linguistic phenomenon. When you add laudao, the o vowel swallows up the a vowel, and you're only left with laudo. So we're already breaking the rules. First person singular, I praise, is laudo. Remember that in English, there's many ways to represent the present tense. It could be I praise, or I am praising, or I do praise. All of these things are represented by the Latin I praise. So in this instance, the English is more expressive. It denotes more detail, but the Latin is shorter. Pros and cons of English versus Latin. Second person singular, you take the stem lauda, add the letter s, you get you praise. Third person singular, stem lauda, add t, he, she, or it praises. Again, you can substitute a specific noun for one of those pronouns, like the cat praises. There's another linguistic rule that says that the long vowel followed by a T becomes short, which is why you have laudat with no macron over the final A. To get the first person plural, you take lauda plus mus. Laudamus means we praise. Second person plural, you take the stem lauda plus tis. Laudatis means you all praise. Third person plural, stem lauda plus nt. You get laudant, meaning they praise, and the same linguistic rule applies. The long vowel followed by a T or an NT makes the vowel short, giving us laudant with a short A instead of a macron over the final A. If we do that same thing to the second conjugation, moneo, we get I warn. Here the E sticks around. It does not disappear like in laudo. Again, I warn in English, also another way of expressing the present tense in English is I am warning or I do warn. But in Latin, all of these can only be represented by moneo. The second person singular, mones, you warn. Third person singular, monet, he, she, it warns, or the cat warns. Again, the long vowel followed by a T makes the vowel short into E. Monet, not monate. First person plural, monemus, we warn. Second person plural, monetis, you all warn. Third person plural, monent, they warn. These are indicative forms. We would use them to represent facts, opinions, questions. So you would use this form to represent the concept I warn, or do I warn, or I think I am warning. Any of those are represented by these forms, the indicative. To give commands, we need to learn the imperative forms, which are mercifully simple. Imperative is the mood that expresses commands. Examples of commands in English are eat, drink, and be merry. For the first conjugation, again, we'll use laudare, to praise. To form a command which you give to one person and only one person, you want to use the form lauda. It's simply the stem. Again, that's only a command to one person. We call this the singular imperative. If you want to give a command to many people, you add te to the stem, laudata, which means everybody, praise. In English, we tend not to express the subject, and whether we were talking to one person or many persons, we would simply say praise. But in Latin, you have to specify whether you're talking to one person or many people, using the singular or plural. By default, anytime you give a command, you are talking to someone directly, so all of these are second person. The imperative only exists in the second person singular or the second person plural. For our second conjugation verb, monera, we follow the same pattern. The stem itself, monet, is the singular imperative. If you want to tell one person to warn or advise, you say monet. If you want to tell multiple people to warn or advise, you must use the plural imperative, which you do by adding te to the stem. Moneta means everybody, advise. Thank you for bearing with me in this rather long first video. I hope to make the subsequent video shorter. See you next time.